and welcome to Snetterton for our coverage of the 2019 GT Cup Championship Grand Finale. Now, we have got the first of two races, our penultimate of the season for you. They are trialling a new format this weekend whereby the cars have gone directly from the pit lane onto the grid and the mechanics are here doing their final checks. While they do that, let me just show you who is on pole position after qualifying. It is the number 19 red Ferrari of the Dezils. 25 minutes on the clock. Your commentator is Chris Dawes, so I am going to leave you in his capable hands. Let's go racing.
Thank you very much, Michelle. What an incredible sight and sound as these GT cars pull away from this grid. Never gets boring. Welcome to a wonderful sunny Snetterton on the Snetterton 300 for the final round of the GT Cup 2019. The grid lines up as follows for the 25-minute sprint race. It's Dan Dezil and Graham Tilley on the front row, Michael Igoe and James Webb on row 2. Seamus Jennings, Mark Murphy take up row 3, and it's the pair of Team Hard Racing Ginettas, Josh Jackson and Sam Randon on the 4th row. Tom Barrow, David Holloway on row 5. Row 6 is Ian Payne and John Whitehouse. 7th row, Jonathan Wright, Jensen Lunn. Row 8 is Brent Millage and James Simons. And on the 9th row is Chris Murphy in his Whitebridge Motorsport Aston Martin. So, the grid has moved away from the field, behind the safety car to make its way round this circuit. It's a lot drier than we had certainly yesterday, and in fairness, even this morning when we first came out, it was a little bit greasy, hence we've got a fairly topsy-turvy grid here, and Dan Dezil's done a fantastic job to put that FF Corsa number 19 Ferrari up onto pole position. But look at that, the tech serve, Nissan Nismo Godzilla as they call it, Graham Tilley chomping at the bit to just jump ahead in his GTO car ahead of the GTC Ferrari. Here we go, down towards the red lights are still on, they wait for them to go out, and we're about to get this 25-minute race underway. Oh, it looks like Graham Tilley probably went a little bit too soon there, and I wonder whether James Webb actually followed him, as is understandable with him tucked up behind in that blue number 13 Lamborghini. Easy for me to say. Round the first corner we sweep Riches, heading up towards the hairpin. How's this going to go? And it looks like Dan Dezil's trying to retake that lead again, as Michael Igoe is trying to slot his GT3 version of the Lamborghini up ahead of the Webb's version, which is the GTC, the Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo version. And Michael Igoe's made quick work of that one up into the 3rd place, which is where he started, so we'll wait and see what happened. Those two seem to have given the places back, so hopefully that will be enough. But look at that, Dan Dezil's not only gone and taken the lead, he's already pulling away as they exit Agostini in the centre of the circuit towards the left-hander of Hamilton's, and then Oggie's right-hander, before we then take the Williams right-hander onto the very fast straight, the Bentley straight. And there goes Michael Igoe. He basically created that gap. He was like a can opener there, just making sure that he was going to throw his GT3 Lamborghini Huracan up the inside of Graham Tilley. And that's just unsettled Graham Tilley a little bit there, so he needs to just get that sorted again before James Webb tries to have a little nibble as well. But I think he's done it. Down the Bentley straight we go, and indeed he has. Seamus Jennings just behind there in the number 33 Porsche. He's joined by Greg Caton this weekend as well. But obviously the sprint race, it's just the amateurs that take part in this one, or if they're both AMs, then they decide which one's going to go in this one. So it's sort of varied as who's going to do it. Round we go, round the very fast Coram. Such a great sight seeing these cars. And into the tight left-hander of Murray's onto the centre straight we go. See the crowd enjoying these GT cars here at Snetterton. Through we go, Dan Dezil has a lead of nearly a second already over Michael Igoe as we come through. A little bit further back, we've got Mark Murphy there, the 777 Mercedes, the AMG GT4 car. He's leading GTH. We've got the two Team Ginettas still going together. And behind there, 911, the GTB leader, and he's diving up the inside. That's Jonathan Wright this time. Ooh, he got his braking very late there. Forgot to make friends to the apex, but thankfully dragged it back again. Up the inside of Josh Jackson, he went there. Yeah, Jonathan Wright in there because David Franklin's away on holiday because, of course, this was a change date put in at the end. See, still got standing water there in the infield. by the looks of it, may have just stepped off onto what looks like a very wet and sodden grass. Oh, Jonathan Wright just wagging his nose there, trying to get up past another one of the Ginettas. And just make sure, because we've got is Sam Randon in the 79 Ginetta, because we've got another one that looks similar-ish in terms of the Ginettas, and that's Ian Payne in number 87. And I think he's already put pay to Ian Payne. Yeah, there we go, the 87 car that's just white and green. Doesn't have any pink on it, so that's how we know that's not a Team Hard Ginetta. That's a PT sports car. Great to see the BMW 150 GTR there having a good fight as well. Tom Barrow at the wheel of that number 20 car, trying desperately to close in on Mark Murphy. That is a GTB car, the BMW, and a GTH, the 777 Mercedes GT4, off of a great season in British GT. And they're just sort of continuing their racing. They just can't get enough of the racing, can they? Jensen Lund there was out in the number 3 car, the wonderful Marcus Mantis, getting ready for a full season assault next year here in GT Cup. And look at this at the front. Talking about assault, this is a growing assault mounting. You can tell it, you can sense it, you can feel it. The 98 car, the Michael Igoe Lamborghini Huracan, trying desperately to get ahead of that GTC car. And we probably will get to see the difference between the GTC and the GTOs. That GT3 variant of the Lamborghini Huracan, it might not necessarily be able to dominate in a straight line against the likes of this GTC Ferrari, but the speed it's able to take through the corner is absolutely incredible. Through the left-hander, oh, touch. This sort of bit, love is in the air. It's just making them a little bit of contact up the inside, but not quite able to do it, so sits back behind him and just loses a little bit of ground as they go through the left-hander of Hamilton. But Dan DeZille determined to get an outright win. It's not for group this, but they still fight. That's the nature of this GT Cup. It is absolutely brilliant. They are always fighting tooth and nail, even if they're not for points in the group. Of course, Michael Igoe is actually officially invitational, so he's not scoring points at all for this at all. So Graham Tilley behind him there is actually the points leader in this race for the GTO haul, but that doesn't stop any of them. All again into Brundle, then Nelson, and they head towards the bomb hole. And I thought that Michael Igoe was going to create the gap again, like we saw him do on Graham Tilley a few laps ago, but not quite managed to do it just yet. In towards Coram, this is where that GT3 car is able to absolutely fly round. Is he going to throw it up the inside in towards Murray? Surely not. No, he hasn't. He saw sense there. But now we will see the speed kicking of that Ferrari. Dan DeZille able to now just make that gap too big for Michael to do anything about it. So he's still sat there. Is he going to be able to do anything to Riches? Surely he's too far back this time. Yep, he just has to take the race in line, follow him through as best he possibly can. Interesting to see, it looked like he was kind of soaring away on the steering wheel. Is he going towards the inside for the hairpin? Yes, he is. Up at Wilson. I held my breath for a minute then, but he's managed to do it. Up the inside he goes. So Michael Igoe, where he will believe he should be in that GTO car, he's managed to do it. So up he goes, and they head towards us on the infield now. You see the difference is he's made that move, but he's not scampering away just yet. He will be able to stretch his legs now he's made that move, but the domination is not absolute between the GTO and the GTC. You see the blue Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo car of James Webb behind them. That is a GTC car as well, because both of them challenge cars. You've got the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Challenge, and of course we know we've got the Ferrari Challenge, and that 488 Challenge car is just an incredible car. And I know that when the DeZilles upgraded to this one, Dan was telling me that he absolutely loves it. He gets out with just the biggest smile in his face, whether it's chucking down with rain or whether it's beautiful sunshine like this. It handles it absolutely brilliant, and it means that Dan's talent is really just able to shine through. He's not battling against anything with the car. It is him and man and machine just going at it. Graham Tilley getting more and more confident in that Nissan Nismo GTR as well. Obviously he has Will Tregurtha working with him these days, and the Pro and Am mix there, it's really bringing the car on well and really bringing Graham on well, settling in brilliantly. Now we've got Sam Randon in that 79 car, the Team Hard Ginetta. He wasn't here yesterday. Niall Quinn was at the wheel yesterday. The pair of them will do the race later. But he is all over the back of Mark Murphy in that GT4 Mercedes. Look at this. He's looking up the inside and he's swept round. Goodness me. And that was early through Coram. Wow, he was determined to make that. There's the drive-through penalty. That's number 6 is Graham Tilley, 13 is James Webb. James Webb was probably just stuck behind him and sort of followed him through. So that is a real shame there. Mark Murphy, 777, through Riches he goes. He's lost that place and that drops him down to 8th place overall, but I think he's still going to be looking to see if he can do a little bit more and come back at him again. Remember, Mark Murphy is a GTH car. The 79 car of Sam Randon is actually GTA. There is David Franklin's car, Jonathan Wright at the wheel of that, just ahead the beautiful Aston Martin there, the number 50 car, Optimum Motorsport run, David Holloway at the wheel of that. Different coloured bumper on it because of an incident yesterday, sadly, but still looks resplendent in this sunshine. And there is Jonathan Wright under pressure from Champions Elect, shall we call them, the number 44 car. There's the drive-through penalty served by these two. They must be frustrated. They'll have been told on the radio. I'm sure they had choice words to come back at. I was hoping the fact that they let them through may have just let it settle, but it's difficult to tell what could have happened in the start if they'd have actually started. They just went before the line, unfortunately. The lights will have gone out, but they hadn't passed the line yet, so just caught out ever so slightly, sadly. But they're back in the race, and we're going to have the joyous sight of them fighting their way back through this field. Brent Millage, number 54, has got the 2019 Champions Elect. Number 44, John Whitehouse at the wheel of that McLaren, but look at them, they are going at it fantastically through the back part of the circuit. And Jonathan Wright in the 911 car trying desperately to make sure that that car can seal the GTB honours this year. And David Franklin, I'm sure, will be watching on TSL and everything else. But look at this great fight. John Whitehouse is desperately trying to find a way to get past him. I got a bit worried there as they got very close to the pit wall, but I think it's an optical illusion with the positioning of the camera. Flashing of the lights there from John Whitehouse, trying desperately to put Brent Millage off. Brent's rain dances for today hasn't really worked, but it did yesterday brilliantly for him. But he's an absolute rain master, is Brent Millage. Despite the fact that car is new to him this year, don't forget, he was started the year in a Ginetta, I'm going to venture. I've got a mental block now all of a sudden, but that Cayman, he's really been getting to grips with it and loving it. He was telling me that it's quite incredible going down through the Craner curves at Donington Park. Oh, and I thought that John Whitehouse was going to make a move there. It was a real cheeky, sneaky snifter that he was doing up the inside of Agostini there. Not quite managed to do it. And there's Chris Murphy just behind them. By my reckoning, this is actually 4th, 5th and 6th in GTH as it stands at the moment, because it's being dominant. Oh no, there's the Saxon Motorsport 150 GTR, Tom Barrow at the wheel of the number 20 car. And they've brought that into the pits. Never a good sign with the bonnet up. Yeah, sorry, the GTH was being led by Mark Murphy in the 777 car, but Josh Jackson is pushing him hard, and he'll be the first place in terms of the point scores because the 777 car is invitational. In 3rd place, I think, is also an invitational car, David Holloway at the Optimum Motorsport Aston Martin. So these guys, 4th, 5th, and then Chris Murphy just out of shot at the moment in 6th, will actually be 2nd, 3rd and 4th. And again, John White is having a look up the inside, trying to make sure they can just put this championship beyond doubt, because you never know what happens after the racing is finished. But not quite able to get up the inside of Brent Millage this time. Again, flashes his lights. Chris Murphy's now tagging onto the back, and there's our race leader, Michael Igo, 98. Now this could be interesting because, as I've said many a time, one thing worse than back markers is battling back markers, because they're not looking to see where you are. Remember though, as we're regularly told in GT Cup, the blue flags does not mean that the slower car ahead of you is about to jump out of the way. It makes sure that they're aware that there is a faster car about to lap them, but it is the job of the faster car to go off the racing line and get past the slower car. So really, sensibly, the slower car just sticks to the racing line, then the faster car knows where it's going to go. Flashing his lights is Michael Igoe. Oh, and there's the crawling 150. Tom Barrow still not managed to clear the throat of whatever the problem was on that car as they came down Bentley straight there. Through Brundle, through Nelson now. And now we see Michael Igoe diving up the inside of Brent Millage. Ooh, and that's just pushed Brent Millage a little bit wide there. And that is going to give John Whitehouse the opportunity. Through he goes. Oh, such a shame there. And just got caught out. Ooh, Jonathan Wright just cocking a leg there at the back of his Porsche just as he went through Coram, and that was just all the opportunity that Michael Igoe needed with less than 2.5 minutes on the clock. He's just going to be going on to start his penultimate lap this time round. Through he goes. Chris Murphy there trying to get involved as well with Brent Millage. That really did unsettle him, didn't he, that move by the race leader, and he's got to hug that inside line to keep Chris Murphy behind him as best he possibly can. Chris doing a great job round the outside of Riches. Is he going to be able to do it? Runs out of circuit a little bit, and again Brent's going to have the inside line covered up at Wilson as the leader exits Wilson, already heading down towards Palmer, and Michael Igoe just effortlessly cruising that thing home as we now come through the bomb hole in towards Coram for now what will be the final time for Michael. Round Coram he comes. He had to work really hard at the start of this race, but it came to him beautifully after he made that move. He just scampered away. The WPI Motorsport run car, absolutely beautiful. Here he comes down towards the Sunoco checkered flag. There goes the checkered flag for the sprint race, the final sprint race of 2019, and Michael Igoe does a fantastic job to take that victory and goes out of the, are we allowed to call that a window? I'm going to call it a window anyway. Out comes his hand to show his appreciation to the marshals and everybody that's watching as the checkered flag falls for everybody else that has already been lapped or has been trying valiantly to chase Michael Igoe down. There goes that great. Brent Millage got back onto the rear of that McLaren, didn't he? So the victory goes to Michael Igoe. Dan DeZille in second place taking GTC honours. Seamus Jennings, Jane Webb, Graham Tilley. Ian Payne took GTA honours in sixth. Sam Randon, Mark Murphy, Josh Jackson, Jensen Lund takes GTB honours. David Holloway in 12th place. Jonathan Wright, John Whitehouse, the champions-elect. They came home in 13th position, and the 4th place GTH car. Brent Millage, Chris Murphy, and James Simons is your last finisher, with the sad demise of the Tom Barrow car that actually was excluded from the results due to having a camera on his helmet. Not the best way to go, but a fantastic race.
Did not get his own way, having started third on the grid for this race, but he fought his way through to take the overall victory as well as a very comfortable GTO win. Thanks very much as well.
It is our final race of the day, of the weekend, and of the season. So it's all about endurance. We have a pit stop this time round. Our front row is dominated by two of the group winners from the last race. It's all about fastest times, which is what determines the grid. Now, I was going to point out who's here, but I don't think he's here at the moment. But sitting on pole position is this fine car. It is the red Lamborghini Huracan number 98 of Michael Igoe, and also Frank Pereira joining him for this particular race. 50 minutes on the clock. As before, Chris Dawes has all your commentary. So, for the very last time this year, let's go racing.
Thanks, Michelle, as James Webb pulls up onto the front row, but he's not got that pole position. Michael Igoe, 98, starts on pole with James Webb alongside him. Graham DeZille and Graham Tilley on row 2. Row 3, Seamus Jennings and Sam Randon. 4th row, David Bierman, Mark Murfitt. Row 5, Jensen Lunn and Josh Jackson. 6th row is the 911 Porsche, Jonathan Wright at the wheel with David Holloway alongside him. 7th row, Steve Ruston and Chris Murphy. Row 8, Brent Millage and Fraser Smart. And on the 9th row, after their exclusion, the Saxon Motorsport BMW, Jamie Morrow. Keep an eye out for that BMW working its way back through this grid. That grid is now making its way round Coram and behind the safety car, ready to get this race underway. And you can see they're just chomping at the bit again. And this is the final time for 2019. I'm getting withdrawal symptoms already, and we haven't even finished this race yet. But Michael Igoe, the two Lamborghini Huracans, the GT3 variant is the red and black one, And the pale blue, number 13, of course, is the Super Trofeo. So here we go, and off we go with the lights out, and everybody looks like they've timed their start perfectly this time. 50 minutes with a pit stop in the middle, don't forget, where it's the Pro-Am setup, then it's the AMs that are out now, the Pros will be taking over. If it's a double AM, then it's up to them, and we'll work that one through as the race unfolds. Round Wilson's hairpin, we go for the full time. Did anybody make contact with the apex there? I think those tyres are still a little bit cold. The sun's out, but it's not terrifically warm here, unsurprisingly, considering it's October here in Norfolk. But oh, who's that making a dive? I think that was the number 15 car of David Holloway was trying to make a move as they went into Palmer, but I think he just tucked himself. Noticed the number 20 car coming up through the field. At Saxon Motorsport BMW 150 GTR, trying to make its way through the field as quickly as possible. Graham Tilley hounding Graham DeZille, the two Grahams together. It's not the first time we've said that this year, is it? Round Oggies they go. Seamus Jennings is loitering with intent in that 33 Porsche as well, and he's got to hand that to Greg Caton yet as well. And we've got a brace of Ginettas. The pink flashes tell us that was Sam Randon 79, just ahead of the 87 PT Sports Run car of David Bierman by the looks of it. Josh Jackson's got a lot of pressure from Steve Ruston, the champions-elect, as they went onto the Bentley straight there. You can see that they're going side by side. The red and white McLaren, number 44, Steve Ruston, swept round and through, and that actually looked like, was that a problem there for Josh Jackson? He's lost another place. Yes, he straight-lined it. Looked like he was going straight on. Hopefully that was just a little mistake rather than an issue, and that was a move for GTH as well, of course, don't forget. And hopefully that just meant that Josh tried to outbrake Steve Ruston and outbraked himself a little. And he's now going to be a bit of a tail waggle from Sam Randon there and the other Team Hard Ginetta. Yeah, Brent Millage and Josh Jackson are now going to pick up the fight for GTH back there a little bit. There's the 777 Mark Murphy. That's a GTH car, don't forget as well. The GTB 911 car trying to make sure that tying up the honours. David Franklin's car, and he'll come back from holiday to find out whether they have managed to secure the GTB honours or not. And there we go. Graham DeZille sat third on the road at the moment with the big Nismo Nissan GTR just behind him. And that must look massive in his mirrors. Here he goes, Graham Tilley diving up the inside. That was a good exit for Palmer. And just muscled his way through there as he got to the left-hander of Agostini. Went as wide as he possibly dared and could and was allowed, because he needed to get that big sweep in on that big car at Agostini. And he's made that one stick, and thankfully for Graham DeZille, it didn't unsettle him enough to throw him back into the clutches too much, at the moment at least, of Seamus Jennings in that GTO Porsche. Again, remember that Ferrari is actually a GTC car, although second place, there you go, the blue number 13 car, that's the lead GTC car, that's the lead GTO we're looking at there. And we get a gaggle of them crossing the line. This is before we even have the pit stops. Josh Jackson still fighting to keep himself ahead of Brent Millage in that Porsche Cayman number 54. And Brent Millage is looking like he's lining up a move towards the inside at Wilson. Equally, the champions-elect are now defending from the GTB car. Jensen Lunn, wow, through to the left-hander of Palmer there. I think he's getting more and more settled and comfortable in that Marcus Mantis, isn't he? Ready for next year's assault. He was really hard on himself yesterday with the wet conditions making it very tricky, but I think the team boss and teammate in this particular race, Warren Gilbert, was really trying to make him realise he was doing a sterling job in this car that doesn't have all the gadgets that a lot of the more modern cars have. And I look forward to seeing what he's going to be doing next year, and really is Jensen a great addition to the GT Cup field here. Past the 2019 Champions-elect. Oh, and Seamus Jennings certainly at least trying to put a bit of pressure on Graham Tilley there. I'm not sure whether he was truly lining up a move, but you know, if you show your nose as though you're going to, you've got the possibility of just unsettling them enough. Up to 9th place, I see on the graphic there, is Tom Barrow in that 150 GTR. Sorry, Jamie Morrow has actually started that car, and that's making its way up from 17th on the grid Just behind now, the champions-elect. Look at that, it's the number 15 car, the Aston Martin, with its... do you know what? That bonnet looks really good on it. It was white before it had the issue yesterday. I like it. It really works well, doesn't it? But, yes, at the moment in that number 15 car, it's David Holloway. Piers Johnson will be taking over that car a little bit later as 2019 champions-elect make their way onto the centre straight once again. Still got plenty of time. Steve Ruston behind the wheel before going in and doing the mandatory pit stop and handing that car over to John Whitehouse. Then I'm sure they'll be celebrating long into that. McLaren here supporting them quite significantly, because apparently this will be the one championship in the world that McLaren has won, which is unusual for McLaren, so they're very supported. They've got a spare car if they need to take any bits off or anything like that to make sure that they secured it. And they're doing everything they need to do. There's Seamus Jennings. Seamus Jennings has got past Graham DeZille now. Remember, that doesn't matter in terms of points, because that's a GTO Porsche number 33 and the GTC Ferrari. But you've seen it time and time again that the outright positions, the pride element is significant for these guys. And Seamus Jennings has at last managed to pry his way past that number 19 Ferrari of Graham DeZille. Remember, DeZille younger, Dan DeZille, Graham's son, is going to be taking over that car a little bit later, and even Graham admits that his son is quicker than him and is lightning quick, to be honest. But fair play, Graham is coming back at him again there. Forced Seamus Jennings to take what I guess really was a very defensive line in towards Brundle and Nelson there. And I was waiting to see whether it was going to unsettle him, but it doesn't look like it has. It looks like he's done okay out of that so far. So Seamus Jennings moves himself up into 4th place on the road, still the 3rd place of the GTO cars. The next target for him is going to be the number 13, the blue Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo. Oh, sorry, apologies. Tilly's still behind James Webb at the moment. So James Webb is sat there in 2nd. So that will be for position in GTO. If he can catch up to the next car he can see at the end of the centre straight there, that will have been Graham Tilley in the big Nissan Nismo GTR. A bit too big to hide that car, isn't it, really? So I'm sure he will have seen it in the distance, albeit, such as the fight that's been going on between these two for some time. And still, Jamie Morrow's fight through the field continues. I see he's pulled up to 8th position now, up ahead of the 777 Murphy car. But look at this great fight still going on, and it looked to me as though Holloway is still trying desperately to get ahead of Steve Ruston, but Steve's having none of that. And as well he might, you know, that number 15 car is a GTH, and it is up the inside now at Wilson, and this is for pride in the GTH honours, but Steve Ruston's determined not to let that Aston Martin GT fall through. He's now diving towards the inside at Palmer. Great defensive drive there by Steve Ruston. It looked like it had been signed, sealed and delivered by David, but no chance. Steve Ruston managed to get the noise pedal down a lot more on the exit of Wilson's hairpin, and he managed to just close the door enough when they got to Palmer as well, because I thought it was going to be the old switcheroo, but it wasn't. Chris Murphy's going well there, and he's sort of having a great fight there. That looked like the Ginetta, I believe, of Josh Jackson, but these two are still going all the way through Oggies up towards the Bentley Straight, through Williams. They're going onto the Bentley Straight. Now what's the difference going to be between these two cars? And I don't know the answer to that at the moment. We've just got a very sort of almost a teaser there that the drivers are starting to get ready for the pit stops. It's not going to be just yet. It's after 24 minutes and I forget the exact figure because it's really precise, but basically it's in the middle of this race that they're going to be switching over, and you can expect some of the key, you know, the AMs with some significant pros are going to be in fairly early, like Graham Tilley, who sat there in 3rd. I'd expect him to hand over to Will Tregurtha probably at the earliest opportunity. Graham DeZille there, every chance that he'll come in fairly soon and hand over to Dan, other than the fact that it's his car, it's Dad's car, so he might go, no, I want to play a bit longer. I don't know, but you know, if we go the same rule, is that you may well expect Dan to come in soon. But look at this, again forcing Seamus Jennings to take the defensive line all the way in towards Brundle. But fair play, that handling on that Porsche is amazing, because it doesn't sort of push him too deep into that complex at all, does it? And he's able to just drag that car around as if he hasn't gone defensive. So fair play, and means that Graham DeZille just has to tuck himself back behind again. Round Corham they scream And then they throw the anchors out the back, ready to take the tighter left-hander of Murray's, making sure they don't trigger the cameras for track limits on the exit there, which it looked like Graham was quite close to doing, but didn't quite do it, thankfully for him. Drive-through penalty I see in the background there. Goodness me, that's no good. Somebody getting a drive-through in this pit stop race. The good news is, unlike the sprint races, you've got a bit more time to make it up again. Graham DeZille is really coming back at him. I wonder, therefore, if it was just a tiny mistake that allowed Seamus Jennings to get through, because as soon as he's made that move, he's not been able to pull away at all, has he? Round the left-hander of Palmer. Again, just watching the strengths and weaknesses of the GTO versus the GTC car. And it's not quite as apparent, I don't think, between these two. But when you've got something like the big Lamborghinis and things like that, you can see it. Chris Murphy's now caught right up on this battling pair. That's the problem when you get stuck fighting with each other, is you kind of slow each other up enough that now that duo's become a trio. In fact, Brent Millage loitering in the background there. I think that he may well be on the back of that GTH fight as well soon. And all four of those cars genuinely are GTH cars. Marcus ahead is GTB. Such is the interest. You get a stiff neck. You feel like an owl, frankly, when you're watching the. It's 777 that got a drive through by the looks of it. It certainly got a warning at least. I don't know whether that was the same issue there, but yeah, you never know quite where to look, because there's fights going on through this entire field. Hence, the film crew here do a fantastic job of keeping us abreast of everything that's going on throughout the entire field. As Steve Ruston, for the last time in 2019, taking his car, his championship-winning car, into the infield of this Snetterton 300 in this glorious sunshine here. It is just a fitting way to have our last action. There's Michael Igoe putting a lap on Josh Jackson, the number 21 Ginetta, Team Hard Racing Ginetta, done. As you'd expect, you'd expect that Lamborghini GT3 to be able to make quick work of that, and sure enough, he's done it as they make their way onto the infield as well. Josh Jackson sat there in 15th at the moment, so he'll be looking to fight his way back through this field. Round Agostini on the infield now. Remember that Michael Igoe is going to be handing that car over to Frank Pereira as well, so that'll be interesting to see how that one's going to go. In fairness, everything we see of Michael Igoe is he's an incredible fast driver, so although he's officially the AM, he's a ridiculously quick AM in a ridiculously and beautiful car. It's such a sight when we get him here. He joined us as well for Brands Hatch, which was good to see. Steve Ruston still being hounded by the number 15 Aston Martin GT4. David Holloway, Piers Johnson will be jumping into that one. You see how the dynamic just completely flips on its head by the time we get to the second half of this race. Chris Murphy in the background, of course, he won the championship last year with Adam Hatfield. He's done it this year on his own because he wanted to give it a go, and I think the plan is that probably doing it with a co-driver again next year. It really varies how people want to do it. Graham Tilley started the year on his own, but because the Nissan GTR was very difficult to get it set up right, because it didn't really come up with any real info for them, and in fact some of the parts were missing in reality as well, to change from a dry to a wet setting, for example, and Graham getting used to a completely different beast to the Ginetta he was in before that. And so Will Tregurtha has joined in for the second part, one of this country's brightest young talents, and has really brought it on. Seamus Jennings handing that car over to Greg Caton. That will be interesting, especially when we also know that we've got the 19 car is going to be handed over to Dan DeZille. Now, the other thing I haven't really mentioned is that we've got varying pit stop penalties as a result of the success that they've had in the last pit stop race. And it's going to make a difference to how long each of these drivers are going to be spending in the pits which is going to make a difference to the climax of this race. Just as Graham DeZille has a little nibble there, trying to make a move before he gets to the pit stop and hands that car over to his son Dan DeZille. He's trying to get his way back, and he's trying to get in towards the left-hander of Hamilton's. Goodness me, that was very tight through there. That is a tricky place to overtake, to say the least. And Graham DeZille has to just settle in behind Seamus Jennings in that 33 Porsche for now. Anyone would think that this was the last opportunity of 2019 for these two to have some fun in their cars. And they're enjoying it, and as well they might. As well I would, if only. There's a thought. But down the Bentley Straight they go. They're going to be coming into the pits fairly soon. The heat coming off of the top of those cars. And again, Seamus Jennings going fairly defensive there into Brundle and Nelson, and that does enable Graham DeZille to close in ever so slightly on Seamus Jennings, but not enough to really show his nose again. Not that that's probably the right place to do it. He wants to carry the momentum through there. And there's Ian Payne, and he's going to be getting ready to take over the 87 Ginetta, David Bierman at the wheel, and there is the number 41. That will be James Simons taking over from Fraser Smart. We got this great GTH fighting going on in the midfield. Chris Murphy under pressure from Brent Millage. I said that he was in the background closing a little while ago, didn't I? And he's made it. He's up onto the back of Chris Murphy. Then up ahead of them is this great fight. Steve Ruston trying desperately to keep the number 15 car, David Holloway, behind him. Both of these two as well will be handing these cars over soon. So it's that last push before we get to that pit stop. And last bit of enjoyment as well. Jensen Lund there in the number 3, Marcus Mantis. He'll be handing that over to the boss, Warren Gilbert, soon. And into Brundle and Nelson comes this. I mean, this has been raging the entire race, has it not? From my memory, it certainly has. And Steve Ruston has just withstood this incredible pressure from that beautiful Aston Martin GT4. But David Holloway not quite been able to make the move. Drive-through penalty for the number 21 car. That's Josh Jackson. Oh my goodness, it has been a frustrating race, hasn't it, for Josh? And he doesn't deserve that. He's fought so hard all season in that car. And he's going to have to sort of just delay everything a little bit further with his drive-through with that GTH. There he goes, the GTH car through and back out again. There is the 41 car, Fraser Smart at the wheel, just ahead of Jonathan Wright at the moment in the 911 Porsche. GTB car of 911, Jonathan Wright, and the 41 car is now a GTA car, that Lotus Evora, beautiful car. Here we go, the pit stops are happening, so in the background you've got Chris Murphy was in, he's not handing over, but David Holloway handing over to Piers Johnson. As I suspected, Graham Tilley handing the big Texerve Nissan over to Will Tregurtha. I'll get tired just watching this bit when the drivers have got to jump in and out of these cars. But there's Graham Tilley, out he comes. Off goes the number 87 car, so that's Ian Payne's now at the wheel of that one, with just behind him Chris Murphy. Last year's champion coming back out of the pits to do this final stint, 24 minutes left to go. And there is Graham DeZille is in, handing over to Dan DeZille, so it's the Suns go to have a crack. There goes Will Tregurtha. Out of the pits comes that massive Godzilla. Just an amazing sight, and if you ever get to a circuit where it's racing, the sound is just incredible. It really is a phenomenal piece of kit. In towards Richard, so Will Tregurtha's just got to get himself sort of bedded in, if you will, because of course he didn't go out in the pits. There's Greg Caton now at the wheel of the number 33. Brent Millage came in, he's doing the whole stint, but that is going to be a change of dynamic for the 33 car. That looked like a warning flag being held inwards, which would suggest that was for the 33 car, just being warned about something, probably track limits. There's Frank Pereira now at the wheel of the 98 Lamborghini Huracan GT3 car, and it was a warning to that car as well, so there's a couple of them have grabbed something as they've been in there. Here comes the recovering Saxon Motorsport BMW 150 GTR. Tom Barrow will be jumping into the wheel there. Out goes 911, the 24/7 racing team run car. Jonathan Wright doing it all. Look at this, you've suddenly got Steve Ruston is just ahead of the number 3 car. Now we'll need to just make sure and see whether these guys have actually pitted. Well, we certainly saw the Aston Martin has been in, hasn't it? And Josh Jackson is doing the whole thing on his own. He's done a drive-through. Not sure whether he's done the actual pit stop yet. I don't know whether the number 3 car has been in yet, and Warren Gilbert's at that. So we just need everything to just settle down a little bit to work out who's doing what, when, where and where. We know what that one's doing. Will Tregurtha just diving up the inside of the 777 car. Mark Murphy, or the pro Michael Broadhurst, will be jumping into that one, or may have just jumped into that car. As they sweep through it, and that's a wonderful sounding car as well, that Mercedes. And there is the 44 car trying desperately to put a move on the Marcus Mantis. Not quite possible this time round. Through the bomb hole they go in towards Coram. We've still got 14 minutes left to go of this fight, and why do we even have to end the season? I just want it to keep going. It's just always, it's been entertainment every single round, and of course it's basically repeated. Both days are repeated. You get the practice, you get a qualifying, you get the 25-minute sprint race, and then the 50-minute pit stop race, and then it's exactly the same on the Sunday as well, and it really has gone down fantastically well with everybody both participating and watching, and dare I say me commentating on it. I've enjoyed every second of it. As of those guys, to be fair, Steve Rust and John Whitehouse, to be securing the championship and be the only McLaren in the country this year to secure a championship. I think McLaren will come back with a bang next year, I suspect, but they've done a wonderful job upholding things in that just beautiful red and white number 44 car, the 570 of course that is, the GT4 variant. But he's being pressurised yet again by the Aston Martin. Now that will be John Whitehouse at the wheel of that one now, of course, being pressurised by Piers Johnson. So it is swap drivers out, but as you were, exactly the same pressure. You saw that the Marcus has cleared off into the distance now, so Warren Gilbert has put the noise pedal down as far as it will go, and he's canted off into the distance. And those two, I suspect they'll be together next year. Again, certainly Jensen is going to be out, and like I say, I look forward to that. It's just been getting more and more comfortable as we've been going through. Down the Bentley straight we come, and there is Warren Gilbert. Blue flags being waved. Yeah, that's because Greg Caton in that 33 Porsche, he's now coming through. Not embroiled in the fight with the Dezil Ferrari this time, is it, unfortunately? So that's where it's sort of these two GTH cars have picked up where they left off, but the GTO versus GTC fight that we had earlier hasn't materialised with the differing pit stop penalties that will have been served. And this looks like a good run through, well, into Coram. And it looked like it was going to carry through Coram, but didn't quite materialise. A bit tight there for Piers Johnson to really be able to do something. John Whitehouse. Oh no, look at this. That's the number 41 car, the Golf Evora. And that's James Simons at the wheels. And it's lost a wheel, so behind three of the wheels, shall we say. That does not look good. What a devastating. How has that happened? This may bring a premature end, because I'm not sure they're going to be able to actually move that under a safety car with, 5 minutes left to go. Yeah, what a shame. As I suspected, a red flag. It's not been possible. You just wouldn't get that moved in the 5 minutes. So it does bring this race to a slightly earlier finish. Not too much earlier, and I don't think there was too many fights and too many people to be upset. So it was another victory for Michael Igoe and Frank Pereira, with Graham Tilley and Will Tregurtha in second. James Webb in third and takes GTC honours ahead of Seamus Jennings and Greg Caton. Graham Dezil, Dan Dezil, Niall Quinn, Sam Randon take GTA. GTB goes Tom Barrow and Jamie Morrow. Ian Payne and David Beamer. Mark Murphy, Michael Broadhurst take GTH honours. Let's hear from these drivers up on the podium.
So somehow we just about managed to squeeze them all up onto the podium. And we paused to let the photographs.
A fantastic result this weekend, really, all round, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was good. Like I said, it was the first time we worked together with the team and with Michael. We are looking for with Lamborghini to see what we can do for the future, So this is a good test, For me also was the first time on the track, and we had horrible weather until today, so it's difficult to learn the track. And actually, it was my first laps on the dry, and I really enjoyed it. It's a nice one, and it's good to do a weekend like this.
Yeah.
It was good. Nice to have a car from start to finish, and I finally kind of got things together and got some consistency. Had to just push really hard for the first half of the race, and then it was just a bit managing the tyres and just keeping it together till the end.
So, Congratulations on your result. You must be happy with that final race of the season as well.
Yeah, no, it was really good. Thank you. It was great. Great weekend, and obviously 4 wins, 2 poles. So yeah, it doesn't get a lot better than
Not
that. Actually.
really,
No,
does
it's
it?
really good. Yeah.
What about you?
We did the weekend as preparation for next year, and it's nice to come and do a good weekend with a good mix of GT cars. Mark's driven faultlessly all weekend in mixed conditions, so I think it puts us in a really good position for what we do next year.
So does that mean you are planning on being back here next year?
Maybe.
Maybe.
We'll keep you hanging for a few more months.
Congratulations. Brilliant result for the last race.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. You know, we did Donington, now we've come here. We've had 2 sets of really good results, 2 class wins in both. You know, the car's really handling well, and I think it's bodes well for the future next season, really.
Yeah. And are you planning on coming back for 2020?
I don't know. Hopefully, I'd love to do it. It's really down to the team, and but you know, it's good to get a couple of class wins in, and I don't see why we wouldn't want to come back. It's a great championship, really well run, and great mix of cars.
And what a way to round it off with this weather after yesterday. I think it's completely appropriate that it rounded out with beautiful sunshine.
Absolutely. Yeah, it has been fantastic. Well, thanks for your commentary, of course, on this, because we couldn't do it without him. And that is it. It really is time to say goodbye from 2019 at least. We will be back again in 2020. So if you want to keep up to date with all things GT Cup, the best thing to do really is head to the website and also keep in touch with us via the social medias. There's the Facebook, there's the Twitter, there's the Instagram. That will keep you abreast of all the things that are happening and all the plans that are afoot for 2020. But I think it's time for us to say a huge thank you for watching. But from Snetterton and from us all at the GT Cup, it's goodbye.